we have here the end of Judas and his replacing by one who is chosen. The election becomes a source of inspiration for the church for the rest of its life, for they are acting hand in hand with the Holy Spirit. And the Jesuits have a whole spirituality of election which hands over the final choice of a life to the Holy Spirit. They do it in this way. They place the soul in a situation in which there is no resistance and a maximum of openness to whatever may be suggested, and then they try to discern by picking up the reactions in the soul to one decision or another decision, because emotions too can be a resonance worked upon by the Holy Spirit. And this element of election has led to many, many vocations among young people when exposed to 30 days of separation from what is not the Holy Spirit. The Holy Father has taken that expression also into his motto. The eligendo is there, electing, and a reminder therein that God is only free to act and therefore to call when we give him the freedom. And if the Jesuits have over the centuries insisted on an absolute separation from what is not the Holy Spirit so as to hear that voice, traditionally for 30 days, there are reasons for it. I noticed over the last days that there is, except at night, very little silence in our day out there. There is noise pollution, and it's more serious than we think, because the mind is unable to be free, and it is solicited by other sources using the immediate. Therefore we need not less but more in the way of safeguard, and this election of the possibility of a sacred space by chiseling it out and going in search of it and safeguarding it at all costs. We are responsible if even in our own space we opt for absence of silence, because even indifferent artificial sound damages psychologically the interior life and the person himself, because the more we hear of messages, the less receptive we become to the word, whereas the soul, empty and simplified, is worked upon very easily by one word that echoes. Hence it is that even in our spiritual exercises we can damage ourselves by looking for too many pages when on our knees. One word goes a long way. It's a different technique, but many do not realize that if they give even their time of prayer to reading, they're not really directly listening to him, but they're depending too much on the intermediary. The election here comes into the gospel itself, and that's why it's chosen for this feast of St. Matthias. You did not choose me, I chose you. This also can happen even on the human level, because one does choose a partner in life if one opts for the way of marriage. And again, there is an element of waiting and listening and praying and discerning involved there, because a Christian marriage has to be also the creation of a domestic church. And therefore the way in which the Lord acts is quite interesting, and sometimes when he wants a domestic church he does actually intervene. I just heard recently, just this very day, how a very Christian couple got together, and they were in no way at that point even aware of their existence, but it seems the Lord was and aware that they were a very good match. And by now there is one beautiful child already from a very harmonious marriage and another one on the way. But you can see a very, very monastic situation based on farming, because they have a farm, where they have not less but more holy simplicity than many a monastery, but a very fertile terrain. And the result is, one can see already that the child is extremely uncomplicated. And that is interesting, that even the child picks up peace. And this question of creating an atmosphere in which we live is not indifferent, because whether it's alone or accompanied, the bottom line is peace. And it's extremely important that we create that sacred space all the time, if at all possible, in which the Lord, who is the Lord of peace, can get through. Again, too much noise damages the soul. When people are happy to be in silence together, then something similar to what is happening in adoration is taking place. They sense the presence and do not need to add to it. And hence it is that true soul friends are very happy to be able to spend time in adoration together, because there is a triple presence involved, multiplied by the guardian angels present. With regard to allowing the Lord to speak, there are times also when that must happen even within our life. Decisions sometimes have to be brought to the Lord. It is very important to let the Lord truly speak by His providence, but also by our picking up His will. And that can be done because, as with the Jesuits, they know over the centuries how to discern through the reactions of peace or joy or whatever in the soul. So too we secretly can listen. Is there deep peace when I make this decision, when I make this election? It's an undramatic but sure way of knowing that we're in the will of God, and the divine signature of deep, deep peace comes when we say yes to this rather than that. Alleluia, alleluia, give thanks.